Yeah, we're coming to you live from the KwaZulu-Natal Rock, the Provincial Results Operations Centre based at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. Now, the IEC has a big job on its hands. The 5th national and provincial elections comes with many challenges, as we know. Earlier, I spoke to the IEC's Mawethu Mosri about voting day in KZN. This is what he had to say. Take a look. Well, it seems that we're having a bit of a problem with that piece. We'll be sure to come back to it in a little while. We'll talk to IEC's Mawethu Mosri in just a bit when we sync that up. Now, we're told results should be coming in at about 1 a.m. tomorrow morning. Now, all results should be in by Friday. At least that's what we expect. Remember, that's still subjected to objections by political parties. Now, we're told objections must be made before 5 p.m. tomorrow. And could remember, KwaZulu-Natal has over 4,700 voting stations. There are international observers present in the province, as well as about 175 private sector lawyers deployed to various voting stations. Now, one of the areas we're watching closely is obviously the KwaMashu hostel near Durban. Now, calm, we're told, has prevailed at the hostel in the area since voting began. Police officers deployed to ensure peace are leaving nothing to chance in the hostel. Remember, it's seen a number of deaths in the recent past. Now, my colleague Ayanda Mshlongo joins me now live from the Results Centre floor. She has been out and about early on and got a sense of voting proceedings today. Ayanda, would you say so far so good?
Definitely, Blain, I can say so far so good. A bit slower in KwaMashu this morning, but the IEC officials were able to sort out those glitches and voting has gone underway. And I can tell you, Blain, one of the biggest things that we're seeing outside is the queues at KwaMashu, the incredibly long queues during the time that we were there, and just chatting to some of the voters that were there. So very eager and excited. And some were saying that they were actually there at the polling stations from as early as 5 o'clock this morning, wanting to come through and cast their votes, and so that they're able to then go off and enjoy the rest of the day. A lot of people coming through. We have also spoken to security agencies just to get an update in terms of whatever cases or any incidents that may have been taking place across the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Blain. And they're saying that no, it has been a relatively quiet day. And as you have said, of course, security agencies are out in full force, and particularly at KwaMashu Men's Hostel. And we also understand that at the hotspot in the Midlands, and that is the Wimbezi C section. But all I can say that, Blain, is that it's really so far everything has been going rather smoothly.
Ayanda, what about military personnel? When you were at the hostel, did you see any military personnel there?
Yes, Blain, absolutely. They were members of the SANDF. You remember, Blain, that a couple of weeks ago, after the security cluster had visited KwaMashu, they had indicated that the military was going to be on standby for any eventuality, just to come and ensure and assist the local police, who at some point had their hands full. Yes, indeed, there were quite a number of military members of the SANDF, and they were driving around, going to the different polling stations, and their presence, of course, being felt there. They were deployed, Blain, we understand, from last night, and they're going to continue up until the results have been counted, the votes rather have been counted. And once they're sure that the situation is stable and that there are no incidents in following those results, the military will then leave that area.
The IEC has just held a media briefing in terms of the queues at voting stations. What are they telling us?
Well, yes, Blain, one of the things the IEC has saying that unfortunately they've had quite a number of people coming through, as I've said earlier, on those long queues. They mentioned, of course, the municipalities of eThekwini and Msunduzi. Now, that incorporates the area of Pietermaritzburg, experiencing very, very long queues there. What they were saying is that by 12 a.m. today, the figures showed that around 20% of the registered voters had cast their vote, and they're really optimistic about their numbers. Mawethu Mosri, the provincial IEC officer saying that so far has been a very good voter turnout, and as you know that the province is trying to at least get an 80% voter turnout. So we're hoping, and by looking at the figures, the IEC says that they're quite confident and pleased that they'll be able to reach that target.
Thank you very much indeed, Diana Mshlongo, on the Results Operations Centre floor here at the IEC in the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Now, we had political party leaders already voting in KwaZulu-Natal. President Jacob Zuma voted at a primary school at Nkandla, his hometown in northern KwaZulu-Natal. Zuma was accompanied by two of his wives who also voted, and he says he's happy to be exercising his democratic right to vote. We also had IFP leader Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi voting. He says he voted to celebrate 20 years of democracy and to honor the heroes and heroines who died for the liberation of this country. He cast his vote at Mashlabatini near Ulundi in northern KwaZulu-Natal. We also saw NFP President Zanele Kamakwaza Msibi cast her vote in Ulundi, northern KZN. Remember, she's contesting her first national and provincial elections as NFP leader and contesting all 9 provinces in this elections. Now, the party contested his first election on May 18th when it participated in the 2011 local government elections. Now, I just want to bring in my analysts at the moment now. Lubna Nadvi, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's just start off with how we came to this point. Protests that we've seen over the last 48 hours. In terms of the current atmosphere, did you expect this?
Well, I think we've seen service delivery protests been happening for a long time. It's something that's become part of our political landscape. But I think that the intensification of the protests is something for us to watch, particularly in Beckersdale. Residents around the country have said basically that if their service delivery issues are not actually addressed, they are going to protest. And some of them have said that they will make it difficult for others to also go and protest, or rather to vote. So I think that at the end of the day, what we have to actually watch is the fact that many of these communities are using this opportunity. It is now voting time, it is the elections, and they're trying to send a very strong message across to the parties that, look, you had so many years to actually address our concerns. You only come around every few years to campaign, and we're going to express ourselves in this way. But protests are part of life in South Africa, and it's something that we have seen shaping our national political landscape.
Let's just look at the voters' roll. We've seen 25 million registered, 5.1 in KwaZulu-Natal million. This is, I think, the first time that we hit the 5 million mark. There's been a 9.5% increase since 2009. What do you read into that in terms of the voters' roll?
Well, I think it's significant because what it's saying is that more and more people are willing to actually be part of electoral politics in South Africa. Certainly when you go back to 1994, I mean, we saw, huge lines that queued up to actually go and vote. But I think that in terms of the increase, you're seeing obviously a new generation of younger people, the born frees that have entered the voters' roll. So you're seeing more people that are actually entering that space and more people that are deciding to actually enter electoral politics. Of course, there's been some degree of apathy, but I think that increase is encouraging because it's saying that we're now having more of a sophisticated electorate, more politically aware and involved electorate, and they're wanting to actually go out and cast their vote and have their political voice heard.
And those born frees you were talking about, it makes up an important cluster, isn't it, for political parties?
Absolutely, because the young people are really the future of our country. They're the leaders of tomorrow. And you've seen across the board that many of the parties have targeted their campaigns to appeal to the youth. They've gone to the places where young people are, like, for example, Facebook, Twitter, social media spaces. So at the end of the day, I think it's important to actually give credit to those political parties for trying to actually encourage a younger electorate and younger voters. But I would have liked to have seen more of that born-free generation, those that were born in 94 after actually having entered the voters' roll. It's not as good as or significant as we had hoped it would be.
Lubna Nadvi, stand by. I want to come back to you in a little while. First, remember, we spoke about President President Jacob Zuma voting in Nkandla. I hear that we have an upsound for him. Let's take a listen.
All political parties have been canvassing voters for a number of weeks. It feels good that I've just voted, and I hope that all voters will cast their votes free without any problem, because this is our right that we fought for. Among the rights that we have is one of the most important rights, to vote for your government. And I hope all people will do so, because it is absolutely important. My wish is that throughout the country, the voting must be as peaceful as it is supposed to be. So I'm very happy that this short but very challenging elections, we have come to this date, 7th of May. And I'm very happy, and I think the results will be very good.
Who did you vote for, Mr. President?
It's a secret.
President Jacob Zuma there, hoping that voting is free, fair and peaceful. Lubna Nadbi still with me. With regards to free and fair in the build-up, in terms of campaigning, would you say the campaigning was free and fair in KwaZulu-Natal?
Well, I would say that was very hotly contested, and we've seen incidences where, for example, supporters of different political parties almost going head-to-head with each other, and so contesting quite intensely. But I think that more or less it's been fairly peaceful. I think that the parties have tried to stay within the electoral rules. There have been a few cases of perhaps where they have not really done that completely, but I think at the end of the day it's been a clean set of campaigns that we've seen. Not too many incidences or illegal activities that have been going on. So I think that we can say, with some degree of assurance that we have seen a fairly good set of campaigns, vigorous political debating, engagement with parties. You've seen some national debates on television. So I think all of that has really added to our democracy and really allowed us to develop this, democracy from what it was to where we are now.
I want to talk about research coming in, and in terms of gender analysis of the voter roll. I've got a figure here saying that women outnumber men by 54.9% to 45.1%. Why are men shying away from voting?
Well, I think it's also about the demographics. Women make up a larger percentage of the demographics in South Africa and, of course, globally. I think also it's the fact that women are wanting to go out and vote. I think it has something to do with perhaps, the fact that women are homemakers and nurturers, and they feel that they need to have their voice heard, that they need to be part of the political process because their children's lives are, impacted upon. So I think women, from that gender perspective, I think do play a significant role. But it's really about demographics. There are more women in South Africa than there are men, and I think that is also something that plays a role in that.
Indeed. Lubna, stand by once again. We want to hear from now the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who voted earlier on at Mhlabathini at Ulundi. Let's take a listen.
This election coincides with the 20th anniversary of our freedom. So therefore, there's nothing more reassuring than that we actually fought for this vote, and that today I've exercised the right to vote like all South Africans. And the amazing thing that this vote is equal. There's none higher than the other, which means that all of us are equal.
You've been watching, I'm sure, voting on television and through all the channels this morning. So far, are you happy what you've seen?
I'm afraid I didn't see the channel this morning, so I can't comment. Generally, of course, what one has heard through the SABC is that all systems go and that everything is going well, and one is hoping that everything is going well. But of course, I expressed during our closing rally that my concern about the election was the fraud and the corruption, and in fact, already there have been incidents. So that is not very reassuring.
Sheng, after this.
Our reporter Linda Mgobozi talking to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi voting at Umhlabatini earlier on. Now, 20 years on, multi-party democracy is still flourishing. We've got, 29 parties contesting. Are we spoiled for choice?
I think that we have a lot of parties to sort of select from. And certainly I think this has become actually a challenge for many people. I have had many people ask me, who does one vote for? And it's very difficult. But I think it's also a healthy sign, because it's saying that our democracy has matured sufficiently to actually allow so many political parties, with all of their different, campaigns and their sort of electoral promises, to enter our political space, to be able to offer the wide variety of choice that is out there. So I think it's a good sign. And while it may present something of a challenge, I think at the end of the day, what voters need to look at is, what do the parties promise, and can they actually deliver in terms of real sort of issues. So I think we are spoiled for choice, certainly. What's also nice is the fact that there's a lot of diversity in terms of what the different political parties are representing. There's some that may focus on, for example, environmental issues. Some will try and promise young people better opportunities. So I think the diversity, and certainly in terms of the range of issues that the parties are trying to address, is something that is actually quite encouraging, and it means that our democracy has matured and continues to mature.
What about these campaigns around KwaZulu-Natal by these various parties? Do you think it was effective?
I think so, certainly. I mean, I think that we've seen many of the national rallies that have obviously, appealed to people from across the country. But in KZN in particular, I think that you've seen parties that have a home-based support. I think National Freedom Party, NFP, certainly would have quite a bit of support. I think the Minority Front, for example, has been trying to campaign quite heavily in KZN and in its constituencies here. The ANC, of course, the DA, and the EFF. The EFF, I think, has been a really interesting development on our political landscape. And young people, particularly in KZN, are really sort of being drawn to the EFF. So, and of course, nationally. But it certainly is an interesting development.
What about Zanele Kamagwaza Msibi's party, the NFP, contesting the national and provincial for the first time? What do you think?
Well, when they did break away from the IFP, of course, many people felt that, that wasn't necessarily a very good move. But she has and her party have gained immense support, and certainly when they contested in the last local elections, they did do quite well. So I think that it's shown that we can't necessarily stick to stereotypes, that when new parties do venture out, especially a party led by a woman leader, she's a very dynamic, energetic individual. So I think that her personality has also enabled the growth of the party. But the fact that she tries to capture a particular constituency, a particular community, and I think in KZN she has that base. So certainly that party is doing very well, and I think we must look out for the results for them.
Really appreciate your time. Lubna Nadvi is our political analyst. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be catching up with her a bit later on. We're keeping a close eye on over 4,700 voting stations, which means we have reporters strategically positioned around the province to give you the very latest election news throughout the day. For now, it's back to the capital.